My name is Eric Rasmussen, and yes, I run research for Groupon. I've been there for a number of years, actually, pre-IPO, which means I've got a lot of history there. And at this point, I would normally ask everyone to save all your Groupon questions about your different Groupon deals that you bought till the end. I can get to that then. But I'm actually going to try and talk about some things that are peripheral to Groupon, but not just about, I'm not one of those people that stands up, now I'm going to tell you about how great my company is and for the next half hour. So I'm actually going to kind of divert from, I think, what was the original title of this presentation and talk about some stuff that I've been working on and that I've got some passion behind, and we can get back to some of that other stuff. So let's see. So I'm curious if you guys, any fans of, I know it's been out, it's not been running recently, but any fans of Mad Men? Okay, good, then you guys will get this stuff. You're in the industry, so you sort of could. So one of the things that really struck me about that show, as being marketers, we should all be into and understanding it. And, I go back and forth, kind of a love-hate. Some of it I loved, other times it felt like it was a bit of a soap opera. But what I took away from it, one of the interesting things was how they would juxtapose subtly, oftentimes a little bit in the background, things that were completely normal back in the early 60s or so, and that now we would look at and just think is abhorrent and couldn't believe it. And I'll give you some examples. This is just from like the first season. They threw a couple of these out there. I don't know if you remember this scene, but it was the daughter at one point, she comes out while the parents or some of the moms are having a smoke, and she's wearing one of the plastic bags which are notorious for having suffocated and killed children. And she's wearing that, and instead of saying, "Oh my God, this is horribly dangerous, get this off of you," she scolds the child about, "If you've messed up my dry cleaning, you're going to be in big trouble. Now go back in the other room and fight." We're all going, "Oh my God, call Child Protective Services." So that was one. And then I think this is also season 1, where they're out having a nice family picnic, and everything's very serene, and you're like, "Oh, what a nice picnic scene." And then when they're ready to go, they immediately pack it up, and boom, garbage everywhere. And they're like, "Okay, we're done," and walk away. Which, and granted, I'm from California, where it's very eco-friendly, and even when I was a little kid, you drop something, you pick that up and put that in the garbage. There is none. I remember when we had some friends from the East Coast, I'll throw New Jersey under the bus right here. They came out and visited us, and we were a little, we were, I don't know, 7, 8 years old or whatever, and we were on a road trip. They were visiting us in California. We were going up to the mountains, and we'd stopped at McDonald's or something. And, we're like packing up everything as we're done with it, as we would used to do in the station wagon, and we noticed our New Jersey friends that are there just like, "Okay, great, thank you," and roll down the window and just toss it all up. And we're like, "What are you doing, my God?" But, way back in the day, people didn't give it a second thought. And then, of course, there was smoking. Not to date myself, but when I first got out of college, I worked on Wall Street for a bit, and smoking everywhere. In fact, the guy I sat next to was a chain smoker, and there was a fan blowing. So at the end of the day, my suit was just covered in ash, and I had to basically get my suit and clothes and shower because I reeked of smoke all day. So yes, nonstop smoking, smoking on planes, smoking at the office, smoking while you're pregnant, and even if you're the doctor, OBGYN, smoking while you're treating your patients. Again, people didn't give it a second thought back then. And then, of course, there's the drinking. Lots of drinking. Drinking at the office. And I don't know how those guys did it, because this is how I would end up if I drank the way they did at the office. So Mad Men moments. You look at it and you go, wow, that was crazy how they lived back then. The reason why I'm bringing that up is to think about what are Mad Men moments and to be humble as much as we think we have things figured out, realizing that in 30, 40 years, people will be looking back at this time and being like, what were these people thinking? They were insane. So one of the ones that kind of pop out to me automatically, and part of this is I've got little kids, is crazed sugar for kids. The amount of sugar that we dump on children, I'm sure that 10, 20 years from now, they will look back at it and be like, what were you thinking? Oh my God, you'd get the kids all wired up on sugar. Other one would be driving. So, in fact, I just saw a horrible stat on it came out this morning was, so it's over 35,000 Americans die every year from car accidents. And I'm sure that and not even 34 years, I'm saying probably within the next 10 years, they will be looking back at this saying, you know, what were you guys thinking? You were letting people that were horribly unqualified drive these lethal missiles all over the place at high rates of speed when they were unqualified to drive, and they were drunk or drowsy or distracted. And so this, as non-sexy as it is, this is going to be our future. I live in Palo Alto, and these are all over the place. These poor people in the Google cars that are testing them out. And it seems like as they've gotten more advanced, they're putting them out in the more dangerous intersections just to kind of test it out. And I see these guys drive by, and they're waiting to like pull out into the intersection, and there's no steering wheel. They're just kind of sitting there and in a little box. They haven't had any accidents yet. And as much as I love driving, I'm still one of the last people out there with a stick shift. I will happily give that up because this is by far the most dangerous thing that we're involved in at all times. So this is what I think of as our Mad Men moments that we're living in right now. But that also makes me think about what are we doing as far as our Mad Men moments in marketing. And I think that there's going to be several of them. So if you think about how we approach an audience or we look at potential markets and doing the whole evolution thing. And by the way, the whole evolutionary chain, there's a whole lot of them out there. Everybody thinks that they're evolved. But so this is my take on it. We started off way back when, hey, they're all the same. Obviously, that's not that advanced. And then as we start figuring out, okay, slightly different message for the genders. And then as it gets a little bit, maybe age and gender, you need to mix it up a little bit. And then, okay, now we need to market by demographics. So we're going to even include things like income, education, geography, region, and things like that. And those are all advances on the evolutionary chain. But that's kind of where we're stuck right now, and we're still stuck. I think a lot of marketing does that in this blind way of deciding that, you know, well, these two people, they are both of the same gender and around the same age, so they are the same person. And it doesn't take you very long to put that under the microscope to realize how off that is and how outdated it is. I will admit at Groupon, we do a fair amount of that. This is just one slide of, we've got a lot of data analytics going on. And this is one that's really supposedly for internal use, but it's not exactly or shocking to you that, so the pink would be, wow, guess what? Women really over-index on beauty and hairdresser deals, shocked. And men more on electronics. Oh my God, earth-shattering. But so, yeah, it's helpful, it's useful, it's one of the tools that we definitely pay attention to, but it's certainly not the end all. Again, it's one of those Mad Men marketing moments where you look back at that and say, well, that's very rudimentary, that's kind of basic. So an example, looking at two females, so let's say from that beauty category, say, okay, well, you know what, they're the same gender, same age, and same income, thus would we conclude that they are the same type of person, they should be marketed the same way. And I'd say there's a couple of fundamental things that jump out at me that I've been really focused on lately that I think everyone else should be. And that's, the first one is their attention and openness to advertising. There are people, as I've done, and by the way, I kind of backed into all this through a lot of different research and found that there are some fundamental shifts or differences in people and how they approach and think about advertising. And so that's a big one. The other one is whether or not they have an open mind. And this goes to the core and who they really are and whether or not they're the type of person that actually enjoys experimenting and trying different things. So for one, I'd say open advertising, listening and learning, they absorb it. They actually enjoy advertising and kind of look at it and try and pick up different things. And they're also an explorer, someone who loves discovery, finds it exciting. And then the other one, distrust in advertising and marketing, assumes that it's all someone's trying to sell me and I don't like it and I just shut it out, or it's clutter, but actually has a negative reaction towards advertising and marketing. And also being a creature of habit, so someone who sticks with the routine. And I don't want to put a value judgment on it. I have to, because I realize I sometimes sound like this person loves to discover and this person's stuck in a rut. And it's not that way, because for a lot of those people, and by the way, that's the majority of people, and it's kind of human nature actually to be a creature of habit. That's who we are as humans. You find something that sort of works for you and you tend to stick with it. And that's fine for a lot of the people. But that's really bad if you're a marketer and you're trying to get someone to try something new. There is a reason why CPG loves to focus on the 18 to 24-year-olds, because that's those formative years when people make their brand decisions. If you are an 18-year-old and you start using Crest, chances are you're going to die a Crest person, except for the big exception there would be if you're a guy and then whoever you marry is whatever toothpaste they buy, that's what you're going to then, and I'm a perfect example of that. You know, I had like a deodorant, whatever. Once I got married, it's, okay, well, she's buying this now, I don't care, great, whatever. But these are fundamentally important facets of an audience that will determine whether or not your marketing is actually going to be successful. So much like, and by the way, this is my earlier anticipation of the audience, which I didn't realize I was the last show out. But if you think about it, in any audience that you're talking to, you're going to have a good section that are tuned out, they're on the laptop or they're mobile. I get that. Guilty of the same. And then there's another group that's just kind of waiting for you to finish whatever you're talking about to pitch you on something. Totally get that. So you basically have a small audience that you're talking to that's actually paying attention. And that's very much like, you know, doing a presentation or actually doing your marketing. So this kind of goes back to the old saying of, you know, half of my advertising is wasted, I just never know which half it is. And my theory is it's way more than one half. In fact, it's probably closer to 3/4. As you've got an audience there with their ears closed, eyes closed, or wallet closed, which is, again, not a value judgment, but there's a lot of people out there, if you're trying to sell them things, they just don't have the economic means to take on whatever it is you're trying to sell. But you do have a group out there that are open to new ideas and excited about it, ready to explore. And that's where you're going to get your biggest bang for the buck as far as marketing. This gets me a little off the rails, but start talking about incrementality and people thinking about how much of your marketing is actually wasted, how much of it is really just selling to your regulars. Now, I understand there's different kinds of marketing, and some is absolutely necessary to keep your regulars involved, keep them engaged with your brand, and keep them using it. So there's kind of different levels of marketing. One is, hey, remember us, keep using us, great experience. And another one, it would be more introductory, where you're trying to win people over, either as a share steal, I'm trying to steal you over from your competitor, or I've got a product that you've never used before, and I'm going to now have to do kind of an education. This is what we do, this is what it is, and these are the benefits, and then win you over, which is a tougher sell, unless you're talking to the right people. And then, let's see, talking about expanding the pie. So that is a way of actually, instead of just stealing from your competitors, but to actually create and expand the pie of what your market is and what you're actually selling. And then I want to talk a little bit about influencers, and there's a lot of overlap. I know this seems kind of disjointed, like I started another presentation in the middle of the other one I was doing, but stick with me. Influencers, because these people are they're so much more valuable for those, again, that are thinking that all consumers are equal and we're going to treat them the same. You win over a influencer, it's like 10x the value of what you can get from someone who is a non-influencer. So understanding them a little bit. So again, back to a lot of what marketing is, throwing spaghetti against the wall, although this is really a bad picture for that because really the whole spaghetti against the wall thing, you're not supposed to have sauce with it. So this is a really bad cook who's trying to test the spaghetti, but you get the idea. The idea being, well, we're just going to throw everything over against the wall and see what actually sticks. And that's kind of the shotgun approach to marketing, which if you have unlimited budget and then that's great, go for it. But most of us don't, so you need a more targeted approach. And the way to get through that is to know thy consumer, your researchers, so you guys all get that concept. All right, so getting down into the dirty, we did a big national segmentation study recently, and we covered a lot of different things, including media engagement, brand engagement, and a lot of different kinds of habits and psychographics. And long story short, we took all of a couple of the ones that really, there's a bunch of different ways we can look at this, but we looked at things like brand loyalty and advertising, so their relationship with advertising and how involved and how much it affects them, how much they're even paying attention to it. And the new experiences, again, this is my own area that I'm very interested in. So whether or not people are, and you can't say, are you stuck in a rut? So you have to dress it up with things like, are you more traditional? Do you like to be in a routine and things like that? And based on that, it really, the population starts dropping out. And yes, there are some of the expected breaks along gender, but especially age. The older you are, the more likely you are to stick with certain things. But those are broad generalities. You have some of the most adventurous, creative, willing to try new things, people that are in the older generations, and those people are very valuable from a marketing perspective. Anyway, these are our nifty little names that we came up with for the different segments. And as you can imagine, the further you go onto this side, the less interested they are in trying new things and advertising and things. This is the part where I start bludgeoning you with a whole bunch of data-heavy graphs, but I'll try and skip through this quickly. But it's just to drive home and to show you that I'm not making this stuff up, that there's actually hard data behind all of these theories. So this one would be looking at a scatter diagram here of how much you are a creature of habit or not. So the lower on this side, you are going to be more of a creature of habit. So an obstinate offliner, that would be a hint there that you're probably a creature of habit. And then moving up, and then advertising attention. How much attention do you actually pay? How much are you even aware and absorb what the ad messages are? And you start seeing these in-the-know influencers sticking out there. The next one we go to would be, so again, how much of a creature of habit you are versus advertising trust. So it's a subtle difference, but important. So some people are very aware of advertising, but they don't trust any of it. You see similar patterns, but again, in-the-know influencers are actually trusting advertising. It's not that they're idiots and they believe everything that's being pitched to them. They understand what advertising and marketing is, and they realize it has a purpose, and they have an open mind to it. What are they trying to sell me about? What is that product about? Huh, that is interesting. As opposed to, oh, it's advertising. Turn the channel, change it. I can't stand it, or I'm just tuning out. This one is around advertising attention and spontaneity. So how open are they to trying new and different things? And this one's crucial because you can even have somebody who's got some ad attention and has the income and they check all those boxes, but if they don't have spontaneity or they're willing to try new things, then it's wasted money. You're going to have to go to some of these people like the obstinate offliners and put a gun to their head, and they're still not going to try your product. On the other hand, you have some people that are raising their hands saying, I want to try new things. I'm looking for new experiences. I like discovery. And then I threw this one in too. So this is attention advertising as well as brand loyalty, which seems a little bit weird. But I do put this in here because I think it's important to stop anyone from saying, yeah, okay, so these influencer types, they sound great, but they sound like the one and done type. You know, they're going to try your product once and then they're gone. Actually, they tend to be more brand loyal. They're smart consumers, and when they find a product that they actually like and they engage with, they are very brand loyal. In fact, they can be more brand loyal than anyone. Okay, so I'll diverge a little bit into what the influencers are about and why we care. And I'm talking about the profile of influencers. This gets a little bit confusing because it's all the hot topic of these like YouTube influencers that you can go and pay money to pitch your product on their YouTube channel and stuff, and they call that influencer marketing. This is slightly different. We're talking more from a researchy standpoint. So influencers, who are they? What makes them different? Why do they share? And this is why they are more important than your average customer. All customers are not created equal. So this is where they're over-indexing big time. So brands that are advertised are better in quality than brands that are not advertising. That is a stark difference from people that think, oh, you know, any place that's advertising has got to be, you know, something's wrong with them. And I know that sounds silly because we're in such a highly commoditized and advertising-driven marketplace and society, but especially when I do international research, this is something we bump into at, actually it's something we bump into at Groupon, where some merchants will be like, no, any place that's advertising, that means their business is in trouble. It's like, oh, really? Come on. And Germany, seriously, when we tried to launch, and there's like, oh, only companies that advertise are the ones that are in big trouble and they need customers. If you're good, you should just be getting customers on your own. It's like, really? We're not in the Stone Ages here, guys. Yeah, because Mercedes doesn't advertise. Give me a break. Anyway, you start seeing other profiles, though, that they're the people that are very engaged and they're very social and they're active and they got a big peer group, and they tend to be a leader in that peer group. And let's see, what else? This is where you start seeing how engaged they are, the number of people that they have. So it's really almost double when you're talking about, well, those are the Groupon users, so we have our influencers too, and they tend to even be more influency than the influencers out there, the general population. But basically it's showing that these people are connected. They are kind of the leader of the pack of their group. What are they interested in? Well, they're interested in everything. By the way, I should probably explain this. You guys are all researchers, you can figure it out. No, the yellow bars would be the people that are the non-influencers. They don't fit that profile. The green ones are those tend to be the influencers, and I'm demonstrating that they over-index on everything. They do kind of everything more. And this is another big reason why they're more important, is that they can't wait to tell everybody about their experience, which if you're a marketer, this is your dream scenario, provided that you have a good product. If you've got a crappy product, they're going to tell everybody about how bad you are. But if you have a good product, assuming you have some confidence in it, they are going to be your personal megaphone. And pretty much any study you can do, and you ask people about trusted sources of information, ratings, reviews, Yelp, things like that, what always comes out top of the list is word of mouth from their peer group. Someone else tells them, oh, this is a great product, this is a great place to go, this is a great vacation or whatever. That carries a lot more weight than advertising and reviews. And these are the people. So everybody knows these people. You've got them within your peer group. You may be that person, and it tends to be specific because you may not be the jack of all trades but you probably have some specialty where people like go, oh, you know what, we're thinking about going to France, and Joe knows France so well. Tell us where we need to go and what places we need to stay, or whatever it is. So everyone's got a little bit of an influencer, hopefully, in them. But there are some people, and it's in their DNA, and that's what's kind of interesting. Why do they do this? What is their motivation? And I also include this because we were double checking to make sure. So there are influencers, people that actually tell a lot of things and recommend things. And then there's also blowhards that won't just shut up because they just like to hear themselves talk. But the differences we found, we dug into it, is that the influencers, they're actually doing it from more of an altruistic standpoint. They're actually trying to do good. It makes them, they get a reward out of helping out friends and being that person who's kind of the trusted resource. What do they talk about? They kind of talk about everything. All right, I'll skip over that. Okay, so I'm getting to the takeaways here. So I know this is actually like a 3-hour presentation that I've really trimmed down, but so to wrap it up, there are untargeted marketing is largely wasted because most of the audience, they're just either not interested or they don't have the means to make the purchase. But there is that slice of the population that is open to advertising and trying to try new things, and it's all about the discovery there. And these customers tend to be the influencers, and they're extremely valuable and as loyal customers and a mouthpiece for your brand. And so this is kind of a go forth quote that as we become more an experiential society, influencers are pushing us more, they're pushing marketers to become more about the joy of sharing and discovery. Because I get this a lot where someone might say, well, that's great, but what do I do about it? And you have to think about what is your business or what is your discoverable moment. And unless you're selling cement or something that's a total commodity, there's probably something that would be interesting for that influencer type or something that holds discovery. If it's not, you got a really boring product or you're not that great of a marketer and you should really re-examine or brush up the resume. Anyway, so those are kind of the high-level things. I actually skipped through it in faster than I expected, which gives us lots of time for Q&A or if you have to catch an early flight. So, any questions?